everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Principle podcast, astrology for authentic living. My name is Mel with Energetic Principles.
And I'm Shawna with Neo Feminine Astrology.
And in this episode, we will be discussing the astrology for the week of January 15th, 2018, and what we have titled Finding Inner Strength. The purpose of this podcast is to give inspiration and guidance for this week with real-life examples of what to expect.
The three major aspects that we'll talk about this week are Jupiter sextile Pluto and the new moon in Capricorn, which we're calling soul strength. We'll also talk about the sun shifting into Aquarius, which is all about a fresh focus. And lastly, we'll talk about Mercury sextile Neptune, which is about a perception pivot. So as always, some of these aspects will influence you more than others based on what's literally happening in your life right now and your personal astrological makeup. So notice what resonates with you most and always use your intuition and logic to decide what's best for you.
Yes, because you know you best. Shawna, let's kick off this week's episode with a quick rundown of the moon's path through the zodiac and some other minor aspects for all you astro geeks out there. Well, we start off the week with our moon in her quiet period in the earthy sign of Capricorn as she heads to make her new moon conjunction on Tuesday, which may be Wednesday for some, depending on where you are in the world. Which, of course, we're going to talk about much more here shortly, as this is a big event. And then she's going to carry on, now in her waxing phase, into the community-driven sign of Aquarius on Wednesday. On Friday, she moves into dreamy Pisces, where she'll remain throughout the weekend. Also of note, we have Venus, who's going to be moving into Aquarius on Wednesday, January 17th at 5:44 p.m. Pacific Time, which is Thursday the 18th at 1:44 a.m. Universal Time, and then 11:44 a.m. Aussie Eastern Time. So, Shawna, share with us who we are featuring for this week's quotes.
So this episode features quotes and inspiration from Virginia Woolf, the writer, poet, and feminist. So her ideas were really ahead of their time and innovative, but deep. So she's a great symbol for this week because of that. And also she had a lasting impact on the world despite working through some pretty intense inner challenges. So we're excited to feature her for this week.
Yes. This is probably one of the oldest features we've had. A lot of times we have contemporary people, but we're going back in the annals of time to find us as strong women that are our four.
Yep, bringing it back. It's nice to mix it up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're excited to jump into these transits. One last note before we do, want to give a shout out to our new patron, appropriately named Virginia.
Thank you, Virginia. It's your week.
It's your week. It's going to be a good one.
Yes.
And shout out to all of our patrons. We appreciate you.
Yes, absolutely. We can't do it without you. And to all our new listeners, I know that we have some new listeners on board. We appreciate you being here too. I know not everybody can be a patron at all times because we have, especially all these Capricorn season, we have financial considerations under our awareness right now. But yes, we're glad to have you on board and we welcome you joining us financially at any time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely appreciate all of our listeners and in whatever capacity you're involved, we appreciate you. That being said, for now or for future reference, if you would like to become a patron of the podcast to show your appreciation and also get our really cool show notes every single week, you'll get details of each episode, including the dates of the aspects that we talk about, the tarot cards that Mel pulls, the quotes that I select, reflection questions, and the weekly action item, along with a complimentary gifts that we have, which are our Astro Basics cheat sheet that has a little quick rundown of all of the planets and the signs and the different aspects and what they mean, as well as a 2018 cheat sheet forecast with all of the aspects for the entire year of 2018 and what to expect.
Good things, all good things that help you get through the week or get through the year. Yes.
Just get through it. Yeah.
Just getting through whatever time period we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so in order to become a patron, the best way to do that is to go to feminineprinciplepodcast.podbean.com. And you can also connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, say hi, and just learn more. I think that, Mel, we have like a little sample of the show notes on Instagram and Facebook somewhere as well.
We do. We have a sample on our Facebook feed of a little advertisement I put together so you can get an idea of what that looks like. But there's also there's a link through our link tree, the link, your link in your bio and you're on Instagram. Well, our link is a couple links. And if you look in there, you will see a link to see the sample show notes, which I've uploaded to Dropbox so that people can get an idea of what those look like. And yeah, I'm so glad about how they look like now. If you're just tuning in, we redesigned those recently, and they've got a little more bells and whistles visually. So we're proud of what we're putting out, and we want to share that with you, and hopefully it can be of help.
Definitely.
So yeah, I guess let's get started here. We are happy to inform that this is a little bit of a lighter week as opposed to last week where we were pressed for time to fit in all the transits that were happening. Life be a changin'. And so let's get started with this week in our lighter load. So our first pair of transits we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about Jupiter, who will be in a sextile aspect to Pluto, and our new moon in Capricorn, in what we are titling Soul Strength. And so some exacts on that, we're going to have Jupiter sextile Pluto on Monday, January 15th at 7:46 p.m. Pacific time, which is Tuesday the 16th at 3:46 a.m. Universal time, and then 1:46 p.m. Aussie Eastern time. And that's going to happen at 19 degrees Scorpio and Capricorn. Then we're going to have that new moon in Capricorn, which will happen on Tuesday, January 16th at 6:17 p.m. Pacific time, which is Wednesday the 17th at 2:17 a.m. Universal time, and then 12:17 p.m. Aussie Eastern time. And that new moon will be happening at 26 degrees Capricorn. So Shawna, kick us in with your first quote.
Yeah, so this again is by Virginia Woolf. If you do not tell the truth about yourself, you cannot tell it about other people. And so I like this for this combination because, number one, both Pluto and Capricorn are very much about the facts. They're like, okay, what is the truth of this situation? And I think that Jupiter sextile Pluto, there is this large appetite for what the truth is and what it is that we're going after, what it is that, like deep inner truths that maybe are intangible. And this deep inner truth that is intangible, that's also a certain theme with the new moon in Capricorn too, because the new moon is a time when we are more internally connected. We're more connected to our extrasensory perceptions, to the things that are intuitions, so to speak. And so I think this is really a time where we are getting to know the truth about ourselves, and we benefit when we connect with that, and then when we share it with other people as well.
I like that, Shawna. And it really speaks to how in the last couple of episodes we've been talking about, ever since Capricorn or Sun moved into Capricorn, we've been talking about integrity. And that's really a thing of Capricorn and Scorpio. And Jupiter is in Scorpio right now, sextiling Pluto and Capricorn. So these are the kind of the issues that are up. And I love that truth, that idea of truth that is kind of that intangible truth that you're speaking of, because that's the whole nature of Scorpios. You can't really kind of touch it. You can kind of feel it. It's like a depth that's there that's kind of rising up right now. And so I think it's a very powerful aspect. And just for some of our listeners, because we had a request last week from a new listener, just wanted to have us run over a little more detail about what the aspect is. If you're a newbie, you might not know. So just to clarify for Jupiter sextile Pluto and what a sextile is, that the sextile is a flowing aspect, it's an easy aspect. But it's only easy in the sense that it's kind of working together, but it's not going to make things just happen for us. It's an opportunity rather to act in some way or to sustain ourselves or something is kind of flowing along, that river's flowing and we can stimulate ourselves into action. Like we get on the raft and flow down the river kind of thing, but we have to get on the raft in order to flow down the river. So that's kind of, more or less the way it is. Do you want to add anything to that, Shawna?
Yeah, I think it is an aspect that's more harmonious and that people typically associate with something positive or a positive experience versus a negative one. I'm thinking of a way that April Kent described it. She was comparing the difference between a trine and a sextile, and both of those are considered harmonious. And she said, a trine is like you're at a party, you're sitting somewhere, and then someone walks up to you to talk to you. Something just comes to you. It just happens. In contrast to sextile, what we're having now is it's like you're sitting there. No one's going to come up to you. You have to take the initiative to get up off of your butt and go across the room and talk to someone. And you may have a really amazing conversation, but you have to get up and take the steps to do it. And so I think that's what I'm feeling with this, is that it's good to take steps towards things. Nothing bad will happen if you don't, but something really cool might happen if you do. You might have an awesome conversation.
I love that. And I love April. She's always got a way with words to help really just hone in on what something means in a visually accessible way. Oh, I love it. So that's just a little information around the sextile and how basically that exact energy is working with Jupiter, where Jupiter is trying to grow things and give us more abundance in life in some way or expand our horizons. And Pluto likes to break down things and has us be honest with ourselves. It's kind of an energetic powerhouse, these two together. But we have to act upon it. And I'm thinking, especially since Mars is so close to Pluto still and still close to Jupiter over there in Scorpio, I think a lot of this has to do with us boosting our confidence in some way, feeling just a little more in line with the energy that surrounds us. And I think if we can boost that confidence and really feel through this, we can use that feeling of being, that inner power that we might be accessing right now, to be more self-assured to get up and go talk to that person across the room. I think that this is the type of sextile that is really going to can really help us energetically align with making waves in our life for the good, I think, especially with this new moon in Capricorn, which is so perfectly placed after this sextile. I think it's like we're going to feel this boost of confidence, or hopefully so. And then we get to dive right into a new moon that is a very powerful new moon, I think, Shawna, for a few reasons. But what do you think about that, and that sextile paired with a new moon on its back?
Yeah, it definitely feels like, I love that what you say about having a sense of confidence and inner confidence. And it does feel to me, it's not as if we're going to just go out there and necessarily do something tangible in the world that reflects confidence, but it is more of an inner feeling. And I think that at this time, the more that we can do to connect with our own wishes and autonomy and what it is that feels good to us versus trying to figure out what confidence looks like or what we should do or what we should say. I think the more that we can go inside and be like, okay, how do I feel today? What am I excited about in this moment? And very Capricorn, how can I take steps towards what it is that I'm excited about? I think those are the kinds of things that are going to build this confidence. And we're set up to build confidence in this way when we do this.
I like that. And well, we've all been through some changes. I think a lot of people have been through some changes, especially in 2017. We've talked about this a lot. But I think because we had our Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Scorpio, and we're starting this new cycle around rebuilding our lives on the platform of change and change towards the better. Because I think we all want we all want growth in our lives. And that is essentially what Jupiter in Scorpio is bringing to us. We're like, we are expanding our horizons, but in order to do so, we have to look at some psychological baggage. We have to put boundaries around our certain areas of our lives in order to, keep out kind of what's not allowing us to change, and then also to open up boundaries to welcome in new situations that we can take advantage of the changes that are happening in our lives. And I think that's a lot of what Jupiter sextile Pluto is really kind of bringing to the table. Because not only is it coming from Scorpio, but it's contacting Pluto, which once again is, this kind of change idea of like rooting from the ground up and, getting a new foundation that is more solid to work upon. So yeah, I think this is definitely a time where we can take advantage in our lives, and we're going to feel a little more confident. It's still the dark side of the moon at that point, because we're heading to the new moon. So it's not like that day you're going to go off and be like, okay, I'm king of the world. It's actually going to be, I think, to liken to what you were saying, Shawna, more of this internal coming to terms within ourselves that's going to give us just the oomph we need to really take advantage of this new moon. And this new moon has a lot to offer us, I think, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But let's talk about, so we kind of covered a little bit of what Jupiter sextile Pluto is doing here. So let's just talk about new moons in general before we go into the Capricorn flavor that we're talking about. So Shawna, do you have anything to share, musings of the new moon?
Yes. Yeah. So, new moon, beginning of the cycle, new moon, new things, right? The thing with the new moon that I don't hear a lot of people talk about that I will share is I think that a lot of people associate the new moon with literally doing the thing or the new thing actually happening on or within the first few days of the new moon. And I don't think that's always the case. I think of the new moon as this time where the new idea starts to filter in, and maybe the new idea has already been kind of like gestating in the back of our awareness, and then it starts to become more conscious around the time of the new moon. And it's like that inception point. So when there's an inception, it's not like the baby just bursts right out. It takes time to gestate. And it's got to build up in there.
It's a good visual.
So I think that the new moon is this time where, of course, we can set intentions, but I'm really curious these days about less about writing down specific intentions and what it is that I want. And I'm more interested in doing more self-reflective work and more quiet work, more slow meditation or even like meditative movement and those kinds of things, and noticing what it is that interests me and where it feels like opportunities are opening up, where's the flow of energy going. And so that's what I would really pay attention to when there is a new moon, because it's a new opening. It's like, okay, what things are trying to take form? What is it that wants to gestate in the coming weeks and in the coming months?
I like that, Shawna, and for a couple of reasons, because I like what you say about being being open to the flow essentially at the time, so that rather than you being like, I want this, I want that, I want this, it's more about like, let me listen to myself for a second. What is it that I really want? What is trying to come through? And to liken to April Elliott Kent again, she had mentioned, the new moon as being a time where we go within and decipher what is trying to grab our, that is the most worthy of our interests and our actions at this time. And I think in order to do that is you kind of got to do what you're saying, Shawna. You got to go in there and spend some time and get an idea of what that is. And I think that this is a great week for that, because Jupiter sextile Pluto from Scorpio is going to help us access those inner realms, I think. And also the Mercury sextile to Neptune, that's a little later on in the week, but it's still growing within the week. So I think that we actually have more than other new moons. We do have the ability to take that time and to go within and to assess certain, undercurrents that are trying to uproot themselves to our conscious. Because that's kind of the thing too, is like the whole reason we're tapping in is that maybe something is not there consciously, that we can write it on a paper. We have to open ourselves up to be able to receive certain impulses and from that, less tangible realm, as we were talking about earlier. So I think we're kind of set up this week to take that approach in order to make that happen. And I totally agree with you, Shawna, about when the new moon comes, it's not like the next day or the 2 days after that we're like, oh yeah, we're here, we got what we want. No, it's like that's why we call it a waxing moon. We are waxing in energy and action. And so basically what we decipher during the new moon, then it gets put into action as the moon waxes. And so you're more likely to see results at the full moon than you are at the new moon. So the new moon is very potent, but you also have to be patient with it. And because it's in Capricorn, what's it going to require? Hard work.
Well, and the thing that I'm thinking about as far as this being in the sign of Capricorn, new moon in Capricorn, as we're talking, is because Capricorn is about hard work and devotion, and it's about, like you were saying, Mel, drawing boundaries on our time and our energy, and so that we can focus ourselves, really, so that we can create what it is that we want. And I think that a part of this cycle also, just what keeps popping into my head is I have a mentor that when she talks about energy work, and especially for sensitive people that are empathic or just sensitive in general, she says, you don't have to create a shield against yourself from other people. And this is important during the new moon because we are more sensitive in general. She takes this approach of more, it's like individually, each of us, it's better to focus on being the alpha energy, to focus on strengthening our own inner energy. And you can think of this as like your solar plexus energy, where our own internal energy is so strong that we don't need to necessarily put up a shield or to put up boundaries, because we are strong enough so that we don't get like knocked around by other people or other situations around us. And I think that may be something that kind of starts with this new moon as well, because it is involving the Jupiter to Pluto sextile, and it's in the sign of Capricorn. So there's really this emphasis on inner strength and how it is that we can actually be that alpha energy for ourselves.
I like that. And that is very Capricorn. Speaking as a Capricorn moon, I know. It's true. And you have to, and that energy is not always the easiest for people to tap into, depending on your makeup. But really this new moon is asking a couple of certain things from us, like what's Shawna saying here. It's asking us maybe to step into a bit more responsibility around, putting our energy towards something. And once again, that discipline. How do we discipline ourselves in order to do the work necessary in order to manifest the things that we are wanting in life? And in order to do so, you have to have that inner authority and that kind of that inner strength, that soul strength that we're talking about, in order to kind of puff the chest up enough to get you to be like, okay, I'm, I'm feeling good about this. It's like, I always, a little animal tidbit here. So I think this is definitely a Capricorn type of energy, but if you're ever feeling a little bit down or not feeling that confident, it is amazing when you tap into the energy of like the elk, and you kind of, you know how elks, they're like, and it could be all the horns on the head, I don't know, but they're like standing up, right? And they're very, they're so regal in a sense. But it's the same idea. If you stand up and you kind of put your chest out a little bit and put the shoulders back and just kind of put your posture in a way that is kind of mirroring authority, it's amazing how just little things like that are going to make you feel that much more powerful. And I think that this new moon has that exact thing, especially with that Jupiter sextile Pluto aspect, is we are really, this is like a coming together of energy to help us step in more into our power, and not power over people, power within. And that's why we're talking about inner strength and soul strength, is because we are our own elk. We're standing, we're standing tall in order to make all these things happen and feel good about where we're headed and the work that we want to dedicate ourselves to.
Yeah, I love that. There's a TED Talk that I watched recently. It was Amy Cuddy, Cuddy. It was called "Your Body Language May Shape Who You Are," and she talks about that. And I'm sure there's other TED Talks on it too. It's so fascinating how little things like that can make a huge difference.
Huge difference. And it's not only how you feel on the inside, it's like anybody that sees you from the outside, especially if they're more of a sensitive, empathic person, they're going to sense that. They see that in the posture. They see that in the tone of voice, or hear that rather. So that's something to think about. And it's not like, you can't always feel that way, depending on what you're going through, but it's definitely behooves you to pay attention to those things, because just a slight shift might be all you need. Like that's, so something to think about. But in lieu of the last couple episodes we've done, of course, I'm going to bring back the Sabian symbol, Shawna, because I think that they have been rather interesting, always interesting, but pretty accurate. And I think this one is no different. So let's talk about the Sabian symbol assigned with this new moon in Capricorn. And since it's at 26 degrees and I think like 50 something minutes, we're going to round up to 27 degrees. And so the Sabian symbol for 27 Capricorn is a mountain pilgrimage. I know. You can't make this stuff up. A mountain pilgrimage. So the key word to that is perseverance. And the theme is the high road. I know. And I've been referencing Diana Roche's musings in her Sabian Symbols book, because I think that she offers a little bit more than some other publications have. And she really thinks that this symbol speaks to vision and perceiving a higher reality, which absolutely goes with our Mercury sextile Neptune that we're going to be talking about later in the program. But it's really about that spiritual journey and a quest for understanding. And the nugget of wisdom here is the emphasis on not giving up before the goal is reached, and the devotion to the dream. And oh my gosh, I just got chills for that one. So Shawna, like how much does that really tie into this week? Because the opportunity, she says, with that Sabian symbol is basically one step at a time and keeping your eye on the prize. And the risk is quitting because you think you set the bar too high. And how many times have we been there? Or maybe we don't even quit. We don't even start because we think, how can I obtain that? So there's something about this new moon that is really tying in to our higher dreams, and that high road that it's the theme of, and believing in ourselves in order to do the hard work necessary to climb that mountain. It's a mountain pilgrimage, for God's sakes. So Shawna, what do you think about that symbol and how it relates to this new moon?
Okay. I love that so much. So I have a few different points. First, the word pilgrimage. Yes, it is this thing that's step by step and we're climbing the mountain. And And a pilgrimage is something that's sacred. It's something not to be rushed through. And so I would imagine that whatever it is that we're really feeling into with this new moon, that it is something that it's okay not to rush. I think that a lot of times I know for me, I'll set the bar high and I'll try to do more things than I really need to do. And then I'll try to accomplish them as quickly as possible. And lately I'm like, that doesn't necessarily, I don't have to get there so soon. I have time. I have time for the things that are the most important. And that's what I'm focusing my energy on. So I think that's, this idea of pilgrimage and what it is that we're working towards is sacred and not to be rushed. Along with that, what I think is really interesting about this new moon too, is that within this week, we're basically moving into the eclipse season as well, when the sun moves into the sign of Aquarius, which we'll talk about more in a second. But this new moon, it's kind of like a precursor to all of that. And so especially for people that are more sensitive to the lunar cycles and to eclipses in general, we may already be feeling the magnitude of something that is coming, whether that is a change or something new or something old falling away. We may already be feeling that. And I think that, it may feel like a pilgrimage or a mission or something. Like even if we don't know what the change is, we may already be feeling that. And so I think that, I love that sense of like honoring this as a step-by-step process. And it's something that we're building and growing and working towards.
Because Capricorn is all about patience, right, Shawna?
Yeah.
It's that patience. And to play on what you're saying about how that new, this big thing's coming down the line and we're sensing it, we're feeling it open up right now. It makes total sense because, we're upon eclipse season, or we're about to be. And I was in an eclipse seminar the other day with Christina Codiel. I think that's how you say her name. And she brought up something that I had forgotten about. And I'm so glad she did because it really clicked to me. And she was talking about how so basically we have eclipses, twice a year. And we're going to be talking about that when that comes down in probably two more episodes or so. So before the eclipse, so the eclipses come in pairs. And so there is this, quote unquote portal that opens up during eclipse season that we kind of like the energy, like this vortex opens up and we start to feel the things shift. And like, these are moments of great, change or opening up to different ways of being, and can help us move along in life, especially if it contacts the natal chart directly. Some people will feel it more than others. But to liken to what you're saying, Shawna, this new moon is essentially opening the portal to eclipse season, because when we have the full moon, that'll be our total eclipse in Leo on the 31st. So I think you're right on point with saying that. And we're right on point with opening up to some great things happening in our lives and to devoting ourselves to these dreams and to this vision, but also the hard work that goes beyond with it, and the confidence and inner strength that is needed to be able to accept that pilgrimage, because you got to have that in order to go on the journey. Like that's the thing, So yeah. But speaking of journey, I think this is a great way for us to, not the band, although they're wonderful. This would them. I know you do. And so this would be a great way to segue into the tarot, because I think the tarot, now that I didn't even make this connection before, but now that I'm looking at it, also supports that pilgrimage. And so for the new moon and Jupiter sextile Pluto, I drew the Two of Pentacles as the focus and the Fool as the grounding. And, I'm surprised it didn't even occur to me when I was putting this together. The Fool is about the pilgrimage. It's the first step you take, where you trust in your vision and you trust in the direction that you're sensing and your instinct in order to start fresh. And, and with that Two of Pentacles there, Usually you see someone juggling things. So it kind of likens to the idea of change and being flexible, and that energies are all, alternating right now. So to me, these two cards together really kind of play into the idea of trusting in change, and feeling confident enough in your talents and what you have to offer the world in order to take a risk. Just really go with the flow around the new beginnings that are happening, especially with this new moon and the fact that it's like the new moon for the portal for the eclipse season. We just have to kind of trust certain areas of our life, even if there is no evidence yet that we should. So Shawna, what do you think about these two cards put together?
Yeah, so it's interesting because the Two of Pentacles, it is about balance. Like it's about figuring out what we're going to do with the things that we got and how to keep everything up in the air, so to speak. And the Fool is like having trust to kind of let it go in a certain way as well. And I like in the Rider-Waite, the image of the Fool card is this man that's like kind of almost like walking off the mountain, or like he's on a mountain, he's got his little dog and he's like, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go with it. So yeah, I wonder if we might be kind of feeling a little bit of both, this need to make sure that all of our ducks are in a row and that everything is taken care of so that we can take a leap of faith. In whatever way that looks like. It feels like we may need to have a little bit of both of those, and that feels very appropriate for the newness, the new moon, the new beginning, but also being in the sign of practical and responsible Capricorn.
Yeah. Yes. You're like, those two things don't normally go together, but those two things that go together that's how people become great in this world. The people that are able to take a risk, but do so with calculated, because the Fool, like you said, like in the image of the Rider-Waite, you got the Fool there with his little sack and the dog, and they're like basically headed to the edge of a cliff, you don't know if he jumps over or whatever. And that's the thing, is the Fool doesn't really necessarily know where he's going. And what I always like to say about the Fool is that, when you go forth on something new, you're probably going to fall a few times. You might fall off a few cliffs, proverbial cliffs, not actual cliffs, people. So I think how that might tie into the Two of Pentacles and the idea of flexibility is like we have to make the choice to stay flexible within our lives, and maybe stay flexible within a new material awareness of some sort, because we are talking about pentacles, which have to do with what is here on this earth, that I can touch, my home, my the money that's in my wallet, my possessions, stuff like that. And so I think that a lot of that is going to be fluctuating at this time. Who knows, maybe a lot of you are going to be like, I want to get rid of a bunch of things, kind of clear my life, and roll through the energy by just kind of eliminating what's not working any longer materially, because speaking as a hoarder Cancer, not really, I'm exaggerating. I like things. When you get rid of some things, they can help you. They help you achieve a new awareness of your life. It's almost like that you clean out like your surroundings, or even just get new surroundings to where, some of us might be changing jobs right now, especially with a new moon in Capricorn. You might have a new job that you're getting into, or a new home situation, or a new way of making money. And so we just have to do our best to stay flexible around the change that is happening in our lives. Even though, we have to just stay as balanced as we can on a road that at this time might be exciting, yet uncertain. So we just kind of got to roll through those punches.
Yes, I agree.
So, all right. So some questions to take away for Jupiter sextile Pluto and that new moon in Capricorn. I would ask myself, how confident am I in regard to acting on my goals? Am I feeling powerful and self-assured to make the most of this opportunity? And if not, can I tap into a little soul strength to help fake it in order to make it? I would ask myself, what spiritual dream do I hold for myself? Am I devoted to the hard work and perseverance necessary for that vision? Will I allow myself to take one step at a time and keep my eye on the prize? And then lastly, I would ask, now that the portal to eclipse season is opening, can I trust in the change that is before me? Will I remain flexible and go with the flow as I enter into the arena of new beginnings, even if there is no evidence of success yet in place?
Nice.
All right, so let's move on to our next aspect / ingress that we will be talking about here. And that is the sun, who is going to be moving into Aquarius. So happy birthday to all you Aquariuses out there. So we are titling that Fresh Focus. And so some exacts on that. The sun will be moving into Aquarius on Friday, January 19th at 7:10 p.m. Pacific time, which is Saturday to the 20th at 3:10 a.m. Universal Time, and then 1:10 p.m. Aussie Eastern Time. And of course, that's going to happen at 0 degrees Aquarius. So Shawna, kick us in with your next quote.
So this is one of my favorite and one of the more popular quotes by Virginia Woolf. A woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction. And so I love this quote. This is from a lecture that she gave where she was talking about how women really do need they need their space. They need basically their sacred space in order to muse on things, in order to create. And I thought this was really perfect for the sun moving from stable and more serious and more dedicated Capricorn into the sign of Aquarius, which Aquarius is more about having a sense of freedom and having sometimes having literal space, but sometimes just having a sense of internal autonomy as well. And I think it's interesting too that Venus will already have been in Aquarius just a few days before. And so that's like this extra element of maybe where we're really focused on like, okay, how do I have this room of my own? How do I have the things that I need in order to create the things that I'm moving towards in my life?
I like that because Aquarius definitely needs that freedom and that the freedom to be the individual freedom, essentially. You know, like how can I be me, be myself, have the space to do so, so that I can really be the best me I can be. You know, like there's that. And that's why Aquarius energy can sometimes be misconstrued as, if as like alienating oneself or being aloof or distant or cold in some way. But really what Aquarius is trying to cultivate is just what you're saying, that room to fully understand the self and be the self, and have that autonomy to do so. The quote is very appropriate, Shawna, for this Aquarius season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that, yes, that is the shadow side of Aquarius, is this emotional detachment sometimes, or being hot and cold. And I think that a part of that is because the thing with Aquarius is it is about having our own sense of individuality within the group. I think about the Leo and Aquarius polarity of being about tribe and belonging, and how it is that we can be ourselves, how it is that we can creatively express and be appreciated for who we are as an individual, but at the same time be a part of the group. And I think that sometimes with Aquarius energy or Aquarius people, it's if there is a lack of acceptance for who it is that we are, sometimes it's either necessary or less painful to just detach, so that there's not trauma or pain at an emotional level. And so I think those are things that we might be working through at this period in time. And
that right there.
Yeah.
Because essentially the sun is, once again, that individuality, our vitality, when the sun is transiting into a new sign, it's basically shifting its spotlight focus on what it is that we're working on. And so now we are, the light is shining upon Aquarius, and we're probably going to be tapping into just those things we were talking about. We're going to be looking for some more freedom to really have the space in order to understand who we are that much better. And that really goes in line with what we were talking about in the last segment too, in order to, make these goals happen for us and to take this pilgrimage that we're on. So I find it very appropriate that we have this new moon in the late degrees of Capricorn, and then all of a sudden we go into Aquarius, and it's like, okay, who am I? What am I putting out there? Like, what is it that I have? What is it that is unique about myself that I have to offer the world? Because that's the thing, is that Aquarius taps into what is unique about each and every one of us. Because we all have something that someone else doesn't embody. And it's nothing to be, comparative or jealous about. It's what we have to offer, basically, the world, because of the uniqueness of who we are. So it's strange. There's like that polarity with Aquarius where, we want to be ourselves. We don't want to conform to what other people think. There's a rebelliousness that comes out with Aquarius energy. But the shadow side of that is doing whatever one can to kind of fit in, or, people pleasing, or being like overly, conforming to, what is going on around us. So I think of this next 30 days as a time to really get in touch with, who we are as a person, what it is that we uniquely have to offer the world, and how we can honor our own energy, and to release certain pressures that others might have on us to conform to their expectations. Because that's the thing with Aquarius, is a lot of times they find themselves in situations where they have something that's been expected of them over and over and over and over, and the pressure starts to build, and it's like, that's not me. I can't do it anymore. I have to, even if I risk alienating myself or feeling like, or looking like I'm an unfeeling or, distant person, I have to stand up for who I am and communicate that truth to someone else. So these are the types of things that could come up during Aquarius season, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's an important point, Mel, because the whole, for people who are Aquarian in nature, and we're all going to be feeling this when the sun is in Aquarius, a part of the soul's purpose is to not conform, and to be, typically people who are Aquarius, they're confronted with situations where they're asked to conform. And they have to decide how to manage that. Because sometimes it's not as simple as just saying, well, no, I'm going to do what I want, because life is complicated. And I think that the biggest thing for, this next month is that it's important that we don't conform, and that we don't compromise where it's important to us. And sometimes we need to, like in professional situations or even relationships, etc. But the thing is, if we do conform, like our individuality and our frustration around that will come out in some other way at some point.
Yes, exactly. And that's when we rebel. You get to a point where you're like, I can't take this anymore. I'm out. And yes, so you can find yourself in these situations this month in certain areas of your life, depending on where the sun is transiting, because the sun is essentially bringing a new focus to an area of your chart, your individual chart makeup. And so the sun will have that Aquarius flavor to it, like we were talking about, that individual freedom, that conforming versus not conforming, and the loyalty to one's personal truth, essentially, and ways that we can think freshly in our lives, because we titled this Fresh Focus, and that's kind of that's a gift of Aquarius, is to look at things in an innovative way and to kind of think outside of the box, so that we can innovate our lives and add a new freshness to it. So essentially that kind of Aquarius flavor that's going to be going on is going to bring certain events into that area of our life. And then that kind of depends on how we personally identify with those areas. So we put together a quick little list I put together a list, and Shawna's going to throw in some musings with it. So we're just going to look at each sun and rising. So as we go down the signs, pay attention to if it is your sun and or rising sign. So let's start with Aries, because we always start with Aries. So for Aries folks, you're going to be shifting your focus into Aquarian flavor around group efforts and friendships and following personal ideals of some way. So that's interesting that we're talking about, the Aries likes to go on one's own, right? And here we have this kind of Aquarius 11th house, where maybe that's why you don't find them too much in group efforts, because they naturally are that Aries. So the focus will be shifting there. So anything to add for that for our Aries?
Yeah, I think also this month it may be a time where things seem to possibly grow more slowly also. And so I would say that theme about the pilgrimage is extra important and extra important for our Aries people as well.
Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense, because that area of the chart has to do with, how you envision your future. And that pilgrimage is definitely part of it. So you got to get that foundation in place. So our Taurus people, Taurus and Taurus rising, they're going to be shifting focus to career and legacy and what their reputation looks like, and maybe being in the limelight a bit right now. And possibly taking on more responsibility in order for success. So there's that very public part of the chart that's being activated for our Taurus people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, a good time to put yourself out there, to take some risks professionally, and to speak up if you have something to say.
I like that. And so for Gemini rising, this area of your chart is about broadening your horizons. How do we maybe invite new experiences in our life, or maybe new studies that we're interested in, perhaps travel a little bit, or maybe like your religious or spiritual concerns are kicked up at this time. And once again, in that Aquarius fashion, we're talking about individual freedom and fresh thinking here, fresh focus, as we like to put. So yeah, it seems like a brainy time for the Geminis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for Gemini rising people, if there is anything that you're interested in learning right now, if there's someone that you're interested in studying with, definitely check that out. This is a good time for that. Yes,
absolutely. And so for Cancer and Cancer rising, our peeps, us, we're in a little tricky place of the chart there. And that is, we're diving into the psyche more, and we're working through certain changes in our life, and maybe certain issues having to do with intimacy or deep feeling. And there's a potential to transform psychologically in some way right now. And we also might be very interested in the resources we share with others, and we might be looking at that in a new way, I think.
Yeah, I think Cancer rising people, this definitely may be a more where you're just really like looking at your own inner world and sussing things out, and that is okay. Like totally get up in there and do that, and
get up in there.
Get up in there. Yeah.
Well, it's perfect time too, because even though like sometimes you might be confronted with something that doesn't feel that great. Once again, we're talking about fresh focus. How do we turn this around? How do we look at that, that psychological those workings a little differently, so that we can refresh ourselves, just like the Geminis did. Gemini, you were working on that for Capricorn time, so talk to your fellow Cancer. Give them the heads up. And so for Leo and Leo rising, your focus is shifting into partnerships of all kinds, whether they're your significant other, friends, business partnerships, any kind of one-on-one relationship. So you're going to be examining those relationships as well, and how, the balance of what is fair within those partnerships. And you might be into counseling. This would be a great time to get counseling, or maybe counsel someone else. And so, yeah, it's partnership season for the Leos.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things that you say. And for Leo or Leo risings who are maybe wanting partnership in a new and different way, this is a great time to add some extra focus to that as well.
I like that. Good observation. Yes. New, fresh focus. After each one we say, we're going to say fresh focus. So for Virgo and Virgo risings, our dear friend Shawna here, we're going to, it's about, everyday life and duties. Like what is your management of your life look like? How are you managing your tasks? How efficient are you? Are you being of service, or do you need to be, or are you too much to where you might need to pull back and, relook at your routines there? Because we're looking at routines essentially. And your physical health routines are very important at this time. You might want to kind of spiff up and do that fresh focus around what, your relationship to your health looks like. For those Virgos, if anybody would know, Shawna, what do you think?
Yeah, I think definitely what's your day-to-day routine? Does that work for you? And revising that if you need to. Also, definitely taking care of any health things that, make doctor's appointments if there's something that you've been meaning to get checked out, or even a new health routine is good also.
I like that. That falls in with all the, we just checked all the boxes.
I know. I'm literally like, that is on my mind. So,
there you go. All right. So for Libra and Libra risings, this is a good time of year for the Libras. You get to shift your focus into things such as love affairs, where you find love in the world, whether it's with another person or what brings you joy, whether that's a person, an animal, a new car, I don't know. And it also has to do with children. So your focus might go on children more, whether if you have children or you have, nieces and nephews, or you work with children, this can come up now. But overall, it's like, recreation, and how do I kind of have a good time in my life and be my authentic self? Because that's essentially what this area of the chart wants us to be. We get to kind of let loose of who we are by being who we are. Go figure. So you might be setting some personal priorities at this time, Libra.
Yeah, I think Libra risings, either if you have children, they may be more of a focus at this time, or just whatever it is that you're creating in general, creative, artistic things, also love interests as well. Libra risings, if you're looking for a partner, this is, or for, anything like that, that's fun also. Yeah.
Well, Libras like to have a good time. You guys are the sociable ones, like so it's a good time of year for you. And of course, we are giving generalities here. It always depends on your chart. There are specifics that go on once we see the specifics, but we're going on this more umbrella picture here. So for Scorpio and Scorpio rising, my peeps, we are actually focusing on home and family more, and what our psychological foundation looks like. What is our home base, whether it's literal in this world or within our inner home base. What does that look like? And how can we get a fresh focus around changing some of those foundations that might not work any longer. So this is a ripe time for self-evaluation and releasing areas of the past that might be still holding us back in some way.
Yeah, and you may just be more focused on your family in general, family living situation, and it is more of an internal time as well. It's more about going inside of yourself and just being with your own internal world.
Yeah. So get in there, see what that looks like.
Yeah. Are you feeling that, Mel?
I am definitely feeling that, especially around the home. I want to kind of I've been working towards redoing my home for a while now. And so I think Aquarius season for me is a great time to finally, hammer in the rest of those nails. It's like I've taken the nail, I've done the first hammer, and I need to get the rest in there. It's basically what needs to happen. So I'm going to be definitely focusing on that. And I mean, I'm always focusing on my psychological foundation. I think that's part of being a Cancer.
Word.
Yes. But I am definitely going to do so during the season. Cause like we said, we don't really know what's around the corner. We're kind of sensing things right now. So what I say today will be totally different from 3 weeks from now when I have new, new evidence to consider. So yeah. So, all right. So Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, your focus is shifting to your immediate environment, like what is your day is probably going to get busier, basically. Life speeds up when you get to this area of the chart. So there might be short trips that come around, or you might have a lot of communications that you have to deal with. And you want to make sure they're clear communications, because that's where we're kind of getting that focus. Is like, how clear am I able to communicate what it is that I'm thinking? Whether it's to my friends or even in my neighborhood, like certain concerns with your neighborhood might come up where you're getting like a new focus around being a part of the community, your immediate community. So yeah, I think the Sages are going to be all about what does this around me look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sagittarius rising for sure. I think it's all about your communication and how you communicate. Is that effective? Maybe more of an emphasis on it, maybe just kind of like you're getting all of the ideas out and that kind of thing. And just very like practical day-to-day kind of communications and getting your life organized in that way.
Yes. Organize that life, Sag. I'm sure. We know Sagittarius might not always be the most organized, depending on unless they have a slew of Capricorn planets going on next to it.
I know some practical Sages. Yeah. Some of them like to get down with that.
Yeah. Depends on once again, that really emphasizes the makeup. So that your own personal chart is very important to how all this fits in. So speaking of those Capricorns and Capricorn risings, your area of focus is shifting to what it is you value. What does your sources of income look like? Possessions, is there something that you want to save up to buy, or do you have too many possessions around you and like, I got to clear this out in order to get that fresh focus? The Capricorns might be the ones clearing some of things out at this time. But ultimately, by tapping into what it is that you value, and how you're valued in life, you're also tapping into your own, inner self-esteem, essentially. So the Capricorns are going to be working on kind of boosting up their self-worth a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think this is this month, Capricorns may be reflecting on the new things that came in the previous month in Capricorn season. And now it's like, okay, what do I want to do with all of this stuff? Do all of these new things and connections and people and situations, do they all really resonate with me, and do they add value?
I like that. Especially since you just came out of Capricorn season where you're, upping up who you are, This is the next extension of that. So speaking of that, let's move to our Aquarius and Aquarius rising, who are going to be taking over where Capricorn just was. You're going to be working on your identity and your personal needs and expressing, your personality, and maybe changing your personality in some way. That's what happens in our birthday season, is we kind of get this new oomph where we're like, okay, I'm feeling good. Maybe I want a new hairdo. Maybe, maybe I'm looking at new ways to represent myself and how I'm, what it is I put out into the world. And even like your physical body, like your straight up physical body might be something that you're focusing on right now. And that's why I'm talking about beautifying it, like getting a new hairdo, changing your wardrobe, this type of thing. You're kind of tapping into who you are as a person and what that looks like on the outside.
Yeah, Aquarius and Aquarius rising people, it's definitely time to celebrate yourself. And
yes,
yeah, and I'm remembering when the sun went through my rising sign, I cut my hair. I got a new hair. Yeah, so it's funny. So yeah, Aquarius people definitely could celebrate yourself, do something nice, and especially celebrate that on the outside as much as that feels good to you.
Yeah, because this is a very empowering time when it's in your sign. This is the time where back to that elk, the chest puffs, and you're ready to stand tall with that new hair. Okay. You don't really have to cut your hair, but just an example. So last but certainly not least, we have our Pisces and Pisces rising. And this is a time of year, Pisces, where you're kind of wrapping things up. You're kind of cleaning the spiritual closet out in a way, or shining a light into your subconscious. And this is a perfect time where we release old patterns for rebirth for the next month when it's your birthday period, and you're getting that oomph that we were just talking about that Aquarius is getting this month. So it's a lot of times it can be a little bit of lower energy, and it might not be the easiest of places to work through, but I think the sun being there just shines a spotlight on all the unconscious material that might be keeping us from that empowerment that you're going to feel next month. So we're kind of weeding that soul garden in a sense, or to use an old Christopher Witecki term from years ago. So yeah, Pisces, spiritual cleaning right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pisces and Pisces rising, I think it's definitely more of internal reflection and just really processing the whole last year and getting ready for when it's your birthday time. And lots of rest and reflection for sure.
Yeah. And meditation, like we were talking about earlier, this is a great time. And I'm sure Pisces are familiar with some meditation, or a good amount are. So if anybody's inclined to be able to take advantage of this time, it might be Pisces, I think, that can do that. And the next month we'll be talking about your empowerment. So yeah, we just want to do a quick rundown as we start off the month, just to see where, you personally are focusing, and you can combine the area of the sun and rising to kind of paint a dual picture in a sense. Although the rising is probably going to be a little bit more prevalent and on the surface. So Shawna, let's talk about these cards we got here for the sun moving into Aquarius. And these are just a couple cards I drew to give us an overall, picture of what the season might look like. And I drew the Two of Wands as the focus and the King of Cups as the grounding. And I liked this pair. It was an interesting pair. And I had a moment with myself. I was like, have I ever drawn these two together, like personally? And so I'm wondering if we're going to be to really tap into our first segment in this new moon in Capricorn, if we're going to feel secure enough to embrace our personal power and take the initiative in our lives. Because that King of Cups is this, he's the ruler of cups. He has made it to the end here. He's like embodies the ability to have feeling and secure feeling and emotional maturity in a sense. And that Two of Wands usually provides us that personal power and that initiative and that direction, that fresh focus that we keep talking about. I'm throwing that in there. So I think the two of these together are really going to help us feel secure enough to step into our personal power and the uniqueness of who we are. Because there's going to be like a divine spark that we're essentially feeling, and we'll be able to really embrace new ideas that are going to help us get towards our goals, because that's, wands are focused on the goals. And by having a wider perspective, we can lead ourselves to those goals and do so with a greater inventiveness, which is very Aquarius, fresh focus. And so, Shawna, what do you think about these two cards put together?
Yeah, so these two cards to me are really about being open to new possibilities and then having the internal autonomy to navigate through those new opportunities. And it's really cool because we are coming from Capricorn season where during Capricorn season, we're more focused. There's more of a sense of limitation and duty than anything. And the feeling that I keep getting with this week and this transition from Capricorn season to Aquarius season with the sun moving into Aquarius is that we've built that solid foundation so that we can be open. And I love the King of Cups, that it's like there's a certain sensitivity yet strength. Like, like the cup itself, when the cup has water or, whatever liquid you're drinking in it, there is this structure. There's the limitation of the cup, but then there's also the liquid inside. And so like, I love this, that we have this structure, we have this foundation that we've built so that we can have a certain opening, so that we can have new opportunities and be able to navigate through those.
I like that, Shawna, because essentially, Capricorn, we are building that foundation. We are, we just went through a time of goal consciousness where we're like, what am I striving for? What am I going for here? And if we are embarking upon that mountain pilgrimage that we talked about earlier, the shift into Aquarius is a great time to where we can get inventive of how to implement those goals into the real world. Like we got to get clever right now, and get a new perspective on life, essentially, in order to take those inclinations that we've been feeling and that new foundation to the next level. And I think in order to do that and tap into that King of Cups energy, essentially we have the emotional wisdom necessary now to head down the road of success. We've gone through some things in 2017, and I'm assuming a lot of us have learned from them. So I think that wisdom of the King of Cups is really helping us tap into our own courage, because Two of Wands is once again a courageous decision in a sense. So now we can tap into that courage and really show the world what we have. What do we got? Prove who we are and our uniqueness in some way. So I think this is a very positive combination for Aquarius season.
Yeah, definitely.
So some questions to take away for the sun moving into Aquarius. I would ask, how excited am I to move into the future? Am I open to forward thinking and cutting edge innovation? Is there any aspect of my life that has gone stale and could benefit from a fresh focus? I would ask, what does individual freedom look like for me? What areas of my life are non-negotiable when it comes to conformity? Where do I draw the line in loyalty to my own boundaries? I would ask, how secure am I within my own personal power? Do I compromise myself in any way to fit in? Can I stand on my own and be the unique individual that I am meant to be?
Nice.
Food for thought. All right. So let's talk about our last aspect of the week. And that is Mercury, who is going to be making a sextile to Neptune and what we are titling Perception Pivot. So some exacts on that. We'll have that sextile on Friday, January 19th at 5:08 p.m. Pacific time, which is Saturday the 20th at 1:08 a.m. Universal time, and then 11:08 a.m. Aussie Eastern time. And that sextile will happen at 12 degrees Capricorn and Pisces. So Shawna, kick us in with your last quote.
So this again is by Virginia Woolf. Fiction is like a spider's web, attached ever so slightly perhaps, but still attached to life at all four corners. Often the attachment is scarcely perceptible. And I found this and I thought it was so perfect for a Mercury-Neptune combination because Mercury is related to our thinking process, to how it is that we intellectualize things. And really, Mercury is about communication, but it's also about understanding things in a more tangible way. It's our thinking mind versus our intuitive mind. Neptune, in contrast, is kind of like the opposite. Neptune is all about intuition and feeling, and it's about extrasensory perceptions that we pick up, whether that is gut feeling or something that we see in our mind, etc. And so these two coming together, it may kind of feel like we're in this spider web kind of thing, like where there's something that we're perceiving or something that we're thinking about, but it's kind of almost in the background, or it's hard to touch. It's hard to actually think about it in a more formed way that we're used to. So we may be getting a lot of new information in that way.
Yes. And like you say, Shawna, it's kind of funny. It's like when logic meets intuition, like the two are together, like the unlikely pair. But I love it because I think this is kind of to liken to our whole fresh perspective now that the sun is essentially, we have this aspect a couple hours before the sun moves into Aquarius, which I find very interesting. And so part of me thinks that we're going to be sensing certain things, or we're going to be intuiting certain things that we can now incorporate into our logic. If we decide that it's like, okay, yeah, this is worth my, worth my attention. Like maybe I've never thought about this before, or maybe have been, avoiding a certain thing, and now it's creeping into the mind. It's like, okay, I got to accept this. This is what I'm sensing. My gut is talking and it's saying this. So I'm thinking that this weekend, because Friday we have that moon in early degrees of Pisces, and it's headed towards Neptune. So I think that I feel like, it's going to be a dreamy weekend in a sense. We're going to kind of be in our own heads, and we're going to be picking up and sensing certain things. And we might have a little less of ability to focus, if you have to get some things done, or like, do some planning, or like get in there with that logic that Mercury is normally so good at. Might be a little difficult this weekend, but the upside to that, and the silver lining, is that creativity is kicked up. Like, maybe you can get creative about how you're planning things, or how you're assessing your logic. Like maybe this is the time to actually look at your logical conclusions and open yourself up to new stimulus that might have you be like, oh, well, maybe it can be like this, or maybe I can get creative around this. Like, this seems like a very creative aspect to me, I think, especially being in, it's interesting because, we got Neptune in Pisces, which is the creative flow, that fish is flowing with the water at any time and picking up all these things. And Mercury in Capricorn is very like to the book and like looking at this and this and this, like, let's be practical here. And so we have a practical, our minds are working on a practical level, but we're tapping into this creativity. So practical creativity, like maybe we're getting creative and can implement that creativity in a practical way into our lives. Perhaps.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it is like the most practical of practicalness. Mercury is already practical. Mercury is in the sign of Capricorn, which is uber practical, uber like, okay, just give it to me straight. I don't need all the flowery nonsense. Meets Neptune, which is all the flowery nonsense in the sign of Pisces, which is like extra elusive and more about feeling and sensing things. And the other part about this aspect too is that yes, the moon is in the sign of Pisces, which is very ethereal and more of a focus on feeling and creativity and just relaxing in general versus actually doing anything.
Yeah.
It's also the crescent moon as well. So we're still within like the very beginnings of the lunar cycle, which is a time where we're still feeling things out. And we're still more connected to our intuition and sensing what it is that we're going to create versus having all of the facts. And so it's kind of cool. I'm feeling like this weekend, it's maybe less about accomplishment. I wouldn't focus on trying to get shit done this weekend. I mean, maybe you need to, and that's, and that's okay. Like, you got to do what you got to do. But I would say, be really gentle with yourself this weekend. This weekend feels like it's more about maybe the ideas are falling into place, and be really curious about what it is that you're doing. How do things work versus trying to force your agenda onto something.
I really like that, Shawna, because we're not at first quarter yet. We're not there yet. We are still intuiting all these things. It's not even time to take the action. The action is going to come next week. So because we're so perceptive right now, and we have that direct connection to our imagination, and, a more direct connection to just spirit in general, I think that this can be a fruitful time to maybe download some things through the mind that will help us make the decisions that we're going to make, or help us take the course of action that we will take once this kind of energy moves through itself. So, so, you might be a little less, have the energy to do things, or you may, it's a great time to just partake in, some music, some art, anything that can kind of uplift your spirits in some way by using your creativity, whether you're a musician like myself when you go to play a piece or create a new piece, or you just like to listen. You're like, I appreciate this. And this, by listening to this music, it takes me to another world that, opens up my imagination. This is a perfect week for that type of thing. Because I think what we are sensing right now, and once again, this is an opportunity. We're talking about a sextile. We have to go across the room and talk to Neptune if we want to get anything from this. So I think that a lot of what we might be intuiting right now, and that direct connection to spirit that we might have, this is an opportunity for us to start to look at things a little bit differently, or intuit something about our approach as we move forward that will help us in our thinking, in order to once again get on that mountain pilgrimage. Because we were talking about high ideals, we're talking about the high road, we're talking about Neptune. in some, Neptune meets Jupiter, depending on specifics. So I think that this is a time for us to tap into those ideals, and do so practically, because we're talking about Mercury and Capricorn. So dare I say, we have the opportunity to get practical about our ideals, our idealism, and what our perfect picture might look like for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we may be thinking about all of those things. And the other piece of this too that I'm thinking about is that this weekend we will officially be in Aquarius season, with the sun in Aquarius, like we've just talked about. And so this really ushers in eclipse season too. And so I imagine that especially this weekend, we may already be feeling like, okay, where are things changing? Where are things shifting? And it's kind of cool. We get to feel that out at an intellectual level, but then also an intuitive level, with the Mercury and the Neptune combining. And I think that the more that we can emphasize both parts, like both hemispheres of our brain, the right side and the left side, the logic side and the intuitive side, the more that we can really feel into what it is that is in store for us over the next month, and how it is that we want to work with that.
I like that a lot, Shawna. And I think that is a perfect point to segue into the tarot cards, because they pretty much pick up on that exact thing. Yes. And so for Mercury sextile Neptune, I drew the Six of Swords as the focus, and then the High Priestess as the grounding. And I thought this was a beautiful pair for the week and for this aspect, because essentially it is allowing us to gain new perspective via our intuition, that will allow us to move on to greener pastures, at least greener pastures of the mind. When the Six of Swords shows up, a lot of times we're moving out of troubled waters, and we can now sense, especially with that High Priestess there, we can sense something of great potential that's on the horizon, but we might not be able to see it yet. So once again, we're coming back to that idea that we don't really have the evidence of what it is that we're like fully going to, or like if there really is going to be success there, but we can sense it now. We sense that we're moving into new territory, and then our mind is a little bit more at peace with the transitions that we have made. Especially, I think, last week or the week before, we had the Five of Swords, where we were having, conflict and working things out. And now we are like literally sailing across the river and leaving that past behind in order to open ourselves up to an uncertain future, but one that we kind of intuit that there is a great potential there. So essentially with the Six of Swords, we kind of know where we've been now. We have looked at that. We're able to make peace with that, and we can move on, and we understand that we're stronger for it, at least mentally. Our mind is really wrapping around these concepts. And so the insights that we have, gleaned from that time are incredibly valuable, and essentially will be the catalyst for a more objective perspective on our lives. And I love the idea of the catalyst because Aquarius kind of has that energy too. Aquarius is kind of the catalyst to certain things because of that ground that they stake, or that new idea that they come up with. Something happens to happen. That makes sense. So I don't know, Shawna, I think this is I do know. I love this pair together. I think it's very promising for the road ahead, especially mentally. And sometimes that's everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love the High Priestess card in general. And then the Six of Swords is really an emphasis on, yes, like there is new territory, whatever it is that is falling away, whatever it is that we're moving on from, that we're able to move on swiftly and surely, and to trust that process.
Yes. Trust the process. Cross that river Styx. We all got to do it at some time. And so I think this is the week to do that. So some questions to take away for Mercury in a sextile aspect to Neptune. I'd ask myself, where is my imagination leading me to at this time? Is there a creative impulse that is trying to break through? Will I act on it or leave it a fantasy? I would ask, are there any messages that are coming in through the subtlety of my surroundings? Anything particular that I sense? What is spirit trying to communicate at this time? And then lastly, I would ask, is my intuition providing me with the gift of a new perspective? Now that troubled waters are beginning to recede and greener pastures are around the corner, can I surrender the past to the future? Can I embrace this opportunity to pivot my perception? And that's essentially what we're doing here. So, oh my goodness. Shawna, what have we learned?
Everything.
Well, we've learned that for the week of January 15th, we are essentially finding inner strength here. And we're going to have that Jupiter sextile Pluto and that new moon in Capricorn. And we're going to be gaining a greater inner authority and a greater soul strength and really setting the bar for what it is that we want to accomplish and opening the portal to the eclipse season. So this is the beginning of a lot of, I think, positive change in our lives. We learned that the sun is moving into Aquarius, and we have a new, fresh focus that we are going to be embracing, and that the spotlight is basically shifting to a new area of our charts, and that our focus is going to shift. And we're going to hopefully get a fresh focus around that. And so lastly, we learned that Mercury will sextile Neptune, and there's going to be a perception pivot. And this is really a time to where we can intuit and sense our direction and move on to greener pastures, especially mentally. So yeah, Shawna, I think that this is really all setting us up for some great things. I'm happy with this week, personally speaking. I'm looking forward to it. So I know you have an excellent action item for our peeps, so please share.
Yeah. So this week, because we have this new moon that we've talked about, action item is to do a new moon meditative ritual. And so I say meditative ritual because it doesn't have to be meditation, but it should be meditative in some way. And so that can be sitting with yourself. It can be journaling. It can be taking a walk. But I want us to spend at least a few minutes this week really feeling into what it is that we're excited about, what it is that we feel coming within the next month. Like, what is it that you're actually working on? And like, what is it that's in practical terms will be happening within the next month? And like, how do you feel about that? Like, what are some things that you want to explore and all of that? So that is your action item for this week, to do a new moon meditative ritual.
I like it. It's the perfect way to usher it in because then we can, we can do all the sensing. This is the start of the sensing as for that Neptune. So I think that it's going to be a fruitful time for that. Absolutely. So if you're doing that, share with us, comment, tag, let us know. We'd love to get you involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we always love hearing how you guys integrate what it is that we share. Mm-hmm. And then another way to get involved, of course, is to become a patron of the podcast to show your appreciation and to get those super cool show notes. So you can do that by going to feminineprinciplepodcast.podbean.com. And you can connect with us on Facebook and Instagram under Feminine Principle Podcast.
Yes, and we are always welcoming new patrons. But if you listened last week, you know that Shawna and I we're on our own pilgrimage to get to UAC this year. So we are trying to raise money to do so because those things aren't cheap. But where there's a will, there's a way, and we're going to get there. And if anybody is looking to help us in that, whether it's becoming a patron or if you want to donate directly, you know where to find us. So also of note, I think we forgot to say this in the beginning, Shawna, bad us. But we have another Facebook Live coming down the line, an eclipse live. We're like doing full moon eclipse live. And we're actually going to change the date a little bit from we've been doing Fridays, because the eclipse is actually falling on a Wednesday this year. So we're going to go Facebook Live on Tuesday, January 30th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, which would be 1 p.m. Eastern time, and then 6 p.m. Universal time. And I'm sorry to the Aussies, but that's looking like 4 a.m. your time. So if you're an early riser, we'd love to see you. If not, we totally understand.
We won't be mad at you.
We will not be mad. We would probably be doing the same. So if you want to come on down, we're going to be talking about the eclipse. And it's kind of early right now. We got a couple weeks till that. But mark your calendar. So I think this is going to be a good one, and a powerful one too, because it's eclipse season and there's a lot to discuss.
Yeah, definitely.
So where can you find us? Well, you can find me at energeticprinciples.com, and you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram at Energetic Principles. And I have been stepping it up a little bit on Instagram. I'm embracing the story feature, and I've been doing a daily astro alert, which is like a ticker tape to give you some keywords for the aspects that are currently happening. And even if they pass after 24 hours, I'm keeping them on my page as they're still relevant. So you can go check them out there at Energetic Principles on Instagram. Maybe they'll give you a little insight to help use the energy to your best ability. And so that's what I got going on right now. How about you, Shawna? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I love those that you're doing now, Mel. You always find cool, crafty, creative things to do with the social media. So I like that. It's a good daily, you're like, what is happening today? Yeah. Oh, okay. Short
and sweet in honor of Saturn and Capricorn in my third house.
Yeah. And so you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube under Neo Feminine Astrology. And I don't have any events or anything that I am promoting at the moment. The one thing that I will say is that I will be starting the spring semester next week. And so with that, I've condensed my schedule a little bit. So I'll only be doing astrology readings once a month, so maybe 1 or 2 days a month. So that day will be January 28th. So if you are interested in the reading or if you've been thinking about it, let me know and we'll schedule that. But that is all for now.
Well, it's perfect, Shawna, because that's a couple days before the eclipse. So if there was any time to get a reading, I would think that would be then. So
yeah, exactly. That's exactly why I planned it for that day,
so book it now, folks, because there's only so much time in the day and we're all busy people. And that's what we're learning during Capricorn season, essentially, how are we using our time? So you can see Shawna has pared it down to be able to accommodate everything in her life. So, all right. Well, any last words, Shawna, for our listeners?
Yeah, sending lots of love and asking that if you enjoy listening to the podcast, definitely leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes or on Facebook. That helps us to reach even more people because it helps bring us up higher in the search engine situation. And if you've already rated, thank you so much. We appreciate that. And lastly, to get future episodes, the moment that they're uploaded, make sure that you're subscribed on either iTunes or Podbean so that you get episodes the moment that they're uploaded.
Yes, and they arrive on Sundays at midnight Pacific time. So if you subscribe, I think it just downloads or it informs you or it does something. So come on down and subscribe down at Podbean, or you can find us on iTunes. And if you do watch us on YouTube, no, it doesn't come out at midnight. It comes out when I wake up in the morning. So you YouTube listeners might have to wait for a second. But yeah, so all right, Shawna, I think this was a great episode. And I'm really looking forward to Aquarius season and opening this eclipse portal. I think there's a lot to offer over the next couple months. So, so stay tuned. So I'm wishing you a wonderful week as well. And we thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, may the stars be with you.
Namaste.